Kidney beans. The kidney bean looks completely harmless. Red, curved, satisfying in a bowl of chili, until they started dying. Raw kidney beans contain one of the highest concentrations of a toxin called phytohemagglutinin, a lectin that tricks your red blood cells into clumping together. As few as 4 or 5 raw beans cause severe vomiting, violent diarrhea, and in vulnerable individuals, death. What makes this terrifying is that slow cooking doesn't fix the problem. It makes it worse. Kidney beans cooked below 100 degrees Celsius actually become more toxic than raw beans. Slow cookers have sent people to emergency rooms. The FDA has documented outbreaks. But here's the twist. That exact same compound is currently being studied as an anti-cancer agent. The bean that needs a warning label is now in research labs worldwide. And the next bean? It doesn't just have a dark side. It has an entire dark history, written in blood and empire. Black beans. Black beans are everywhere in Latin American cuisine. But their story begins not with food, but with survival. When Spanish colonizers arrived in Mesoamerica, they found civilizations cultivating black beans for over 7,000 years. It wasn't just food. It was currency, ritual, medicine. Aztec healers prescribed black beans for kidney problems, which makes strange scientific sense because their antioxidant concentration genuinely supports kidney function. The ancients had no biochemistry. They had observation. And they were right. When colonial forces tried destroying indigenous food systems as cultural erasure, black beans couldn't be eliminated. They grew wild, spread easily, needed almost no infrastructure. The bean resisted colonization in a way the people themselves couldn't. Black beans also carry one of the highest antioxidant counts of any food on Earth, comparable to blueberries, which cost 5 times as much per serving. When you cook them and the water turns dark purple-black, you're watching one of the most concentrated plant antioxidants in existence leach into your pot. Most people drain it. They're pouring medicine down the sink. The next bean is the most eaten bean in America, and almost everything Americans think they know about it is wrong. Pinto beans. Pinto means painted in Spanish. Raw. It's streaked with reddish-brown markings across a pale background. Cook it, and every marking vanishes completely, as if they never existed. Pinto beans make up roughly 1/3 of all dry bean consumption in the United States, and are the base of virtually every refried bean on the market. Yet most people eating them are missing the best version entirely. Traditional Mexican cooking uses lard-fried pintos from scratch, where starch breaks down slowly into something unrecognizable in texture and flavor compared to the canned version. The difference is what separates instant coffee from fresh espresso. The strange part, pinto beans fix nitrogen from the air and deposit it directly into soil as they grow. Farmers rotating pintos find soil quality improving without a single gram of fertilizer. The bean feeds itself, feeds you, and repairs the earth simultaneously. No other common food crop does all three. The next bean doesn't just feed people, it once held the same social status as gold. Chickpeas, garbanzo beans. Chickpeas are approximately 10,000 years old. Archaeologists in southeastern Turkey found carbonized chickpea remains dating to 7500 BCE, older than written language, older than the wheel, older than virtually every institution humanity has built. Here's what Rome did with them. The politician Marcus Tullius Cicero had a name translating directly to chickpea. The leading theory is that an ancestor had a chickpea-shaped wart on his nose. The most powerful orator in Roman history was named after a legume. He apparently embraced it. The modern chickpea has an identity crisis. In South Asia, it becomes chana dal. In the Middle East, it's hummus. In Western countries, it's ground into gluten-free flour. The exact same seed becomes 3 entirely different ingredients, depending on which kitchen it enters. And aquafaba, the liquid you drain from a can of chickpeas and throw away, turns out to be one of the most remarkable egg white substitutes ever discovered. A French chef and an American software engineer figured this out independently in 2014 and 2015. It whips, foams, and makes meringue. It's been in your recycling bin for years. The next bean was so critical to the military that governments rationed it during wartime. Navy beans. The navy bean is named not after its color, it's plain and white, but after its role. It was the staple food of the United States Navy throughout the 19th century. Small, dense, shelf-stable for years, extraordinarily high in protein. Sailors crossed oceans on these things. During World War I, the U.S. government ran campaigns positioning navy bean consumption as patriotic duty. Eating them wasn't dietary choice, it was civic obligation. Here's what makes it scientifically remarkable. Navy beans have one of the highest concentrations of resistant starch of any commonly eaten food. Resistant starch bypasses your small intestine entirely, reaching your large intestine where gut bacteria ferment it into short-chain fatty acids that feed colon cells directly, strongly linked in research to reduced colorectal cancer risk. The navy bean is quietly doing cancer prevention at the cellular level, and almost nobody eating it knows. It's also the bean in British baked beans, considered deeply British, but introduced by American canning companies in the early 20th century. The British national comfort food is American. The next bean traveled even further and built an identity crisis across entire continents. Cannellini beans. Cannellini beans are considered quintessentially Italian, the soul of Tuscan white bean soup. Italian grandmothers have cooked them for centuries, except they're not from Italy. Not even close. Cannellini originated in South America, brought to Europe by Spanish explorers in the 16th century. For thousands of years before any Italian chef touched one, indigenous South Americans had already developed the cannellini's ancestor into a staple crop. It arrived as a foreign curiosity, and within 2 generations became so embedded in Tuscan cuisine that people forgot it had ever come from anywhere else. This is the Colombian exchange. It gave Italy tomatoes, India chili peppers, Ireland potatoes, and Tuscany white beans, all from the same hemisphere being colonized. The colonizers took the land and adopted the food. Nutritionally, cannellini have one of the most favorable glycemic responses of any carbohydrate food. They digest slowly. Blood sugar rises gradually, which is why Mediterranean diets show dramatically lower rates of type 2 diabetes, even in populations eating significant carbohydrates. The next bean carries a curse, so persistent, it followed one philosopher directly to his death. Lima beans. Lima beans contain cyanide, not metaphorically. Traditionally cultivated varieties across Africa, Asia, and South America can carry hydrogen cyanide levels high enough to kill. Commercial lima beans in Western stores have been selectively bred down to safe levels. Wild varieties are still genuinely dangerous. Here's why. Cyanide is the lima bean's defense system, evolved specifically to stop animals from eating seeds before they're ready to disperse. The bean is chemically weaponized. Cooking breaks the compounds down safely, but the defense mechanism is completely real. The philosopher Pythagoras reportedly had such an intense fear of beans, he refused to touch them. When pursued by enemies, he reached a bean field and stopped. He refused to run through it. He was caught and killed. A man who revolutionized mathematics may have died because of a bean phobia. Historians debate whether the story is literal. The image is unforgettable either way. The next bean carries no darkness, but hides a secret that modern science is only now confirming. Adzuki beans. Adzuki beans are small, red, and almost universally sweet, which is why across East Asia they appear in desserts. Red bean paste fills Japanese mochi, Chinese mooncakes, Korean patbingsu. A bean in dessert sounds strange in the West. In East Asia, it's been the norm for over 1,000 years. What makes adzuki genuinely unusual? They are almost never flatulence-inducing. The oligosaccharides that gut bacteria ferment into gas are present in dramatically lower concentrations than than virtually any other legume. Documented physiology, not myth. Adzuki is the bean for people who gave up on beans. In Japan, adzuki cooked with rice, sekihan, is served at celebrations. Ancient Chinese texts prescribed them for kidney disease and edema. Modern research confirms a genuine diuretic effect. Ancient medicine reached a real conclusion with no instruments, only observation. The next bean didn't need centuries to prove itself. It fed empires, then turned against the very people who built them. Fava beans. Fava beans have cultivation records stretching back 8,000 years. They fed Egyptian pharaohs and Roman legions. For much of human history, the fava bean was the primary protein source for entire civilizations. Then genetics changed everything. A significant percentage of people, predominantly those with African, Mediterranean, and Middle Eastern ancestry, carry a variant called G6PD deficiency. For them, eating fava beans triggers favism, a sudden destruction of red blood cells leading to kidney failure and death. The populations that have eaten fava beans the longest are also the most genetically susceptible to being killed by them. The bean that built these civilizations can kill the descendants of the people it fed. Pythagoras' fear of beans has been reinterpreted by modern medical historians as possible favism, a real, heritable condition, making beans genuinely lethal for him. The philosopher who couldn't cross a bean field may have had a biological reason nobody around him could understand. The final bean has a secret that dwarfs all of them, something it's been doing underground that scientists only recently learned to see. Mung beans. Mung beans are small, green, and visually unexciting, but underneath is one of the most biologically strange stories in the legume family. They're among the fastest sprouting seeds in agriculture. Root emergence begins within 8 hours. Within 3 days, a dry seed becomes a living plant with measurable nutritional changes happening in real time. Sprouting drops phytic acid, the compound blocking mineral absorption in your gut, dramatically. Vitamin C content, nearly absent in the dry bean, rises by several 100%. The carbohydrate structure changes entirely. The bean pre-digests itself, becoming a biochemically different food. Same seed, entirely different nutritional profile. The bean sprouts in virtually every stir-fry across the Western world, almost entirely mung bean sprouts. The generic bean sprout has a name, sitting in your takeout containers for decades without introduction. But the strangest part is underground. Mung bean roots emit chemical signals specific enough to attract only the right nitrogen-fixing bacteria, while repelling others. The bean selects its own microscopic farming team through chemical negotiation that scientists have only recently begun to decode. A tiny green bean doing precision agriculture at the microbial level, without a brain, without a plan, for 8,000 years. 10 beans. One can kill you with 4 pieces raw. One survived colonization when people couldn't. One carries a genetic death sentence for the descendants of the civilization it built. One is negotiating with microbes underground right now, with no brain and no plan. These aren't exotic superfoods. They're sitting in your pantry, in cans, in bags, completely ordinary, hiding stories most people will never know. The most unremarkable shelf in your kitchen is one of the most historically strange and scientifically fascinating places in your home.